Have you ever noticed how certain people seem out of place in the middle of a crowd? They walk among everyone else, yet there's something in their eyes, a kind of distance, as if they are simultaneously present and absent. It's not arrogance or indifference, it's something deeper, more subtle. It's the gaze of someone who sees beyond the superficial layers that most people accept as the entirety of reality. Have you ever felt this in yourself? That feeling of being at a lively party, surrounded by people laughing and chatting about things everyone considers important, while inside you there's a quiet voice asking, is this it? Is this what everyone is pretending is so meaningful? If that question resonates somewhere within you, then you know the first taste of the danger I am about to discuss. The danger of seeing too deeply. I once met a man, let's call him Daniel, who had an unusual perception since childhood. He could feel the unspoken emotions of adults, sense the hidden dynamics in his family, see beneath the social masks everyone wore so comfortably. At first, he thought everyone saw what he saw. He didn't understand why people kept performing their elaborate acts when the underlying truth seemed so obvious. It was only as he grew older that he realized most people weren't pretending. They truly didn't see what was so evident to him, and that's when his real problem began. There is a real danger in developing the ability to see beyond appearances, to pierce through the layers of illusion society constructs so meticulously. It's not the kind of danger that threatens your physical body, though that can happen in extreme circumstances. It's a subtler danger that threatens something far more fundamental. Your sense of belonging, your connection with others, your ability to participate in what we might call the collective dream of humanity. Think about it for a moment. Human society functions because we share certain illusions. We all agree to pretend that paper money has inherent value, that national borders are objective realities rather than imagined constructs, that titles and social positions grant real worth to the people who hold them. We agree to pretend that social rituals and cultural conventions have deep meaning, and most people don't realize they're pretending. They simply accept these shared illusions as the very structure of reality. But what happens when your eyes open? When you begin to see through these constructions? When you realize that much of what we consider normal or real is simply an elaborate collective fiction? At first, this vision can feel liberating. You feel like someone who finally woke up from a dream everyone else is still dreaming. There's a sense of clarity, of heightened understanding, maybe even a hint of pride in no longer being fooled by the illusions that keep others captive. But if you continue down this path of ever-deepening perception, if you keep peeling back the layers of conditioning and self-deception, you eventually reach a dangerous point. A point where the line between wisdom and isolation becomes thin. Because the clearer you see through social illusions, the harder it becomes to genuinely participate in them. And paradoxically, these very illusions are what make much of human connection possible. When you can no longer take seriously the concerns that consume most people's attention, when you clearly see the futility of many of the pursuits that occupy their lives, you begin to feel a kind of abyss opening between you and them, an abyss that can be very difficult to cross. Daniel's story illustrates this perfectly. As his penetrating perception developed into adulthood, he found himself increasingly unable to maintain what we call casual friendships. The superficial conversations that serve as social lubrication felt unbearably empty to him. He could feel the unacknowledged insecurities behind one friend's bravado, the sadness masked by another's constant smile, the fear of intimacy that made a third keep every interaction safely on the surface. And the hardest part, he knew that pointing out these hidden dynamics wouldn't be welcomed. No one wants their carefully crafted masks removed without consent. So Daniel found himself in a peculiar kind of isolation. Not the physical isolation of a hermit, but the isolation of someone who lives among others while seeing a fundamentally different reality than the one they see. It's like watching a movie with 3D glasses while everyone around you sees it in 2D, and being unable to explain to them the extra depth you perceive. Let me pause here and ask you directly, does this resonate with your experience? Have you ever felt like a stranger, not because you look different on the outside, but because you see the world in a way others don't seem to share? Have you ever had to fake interest in conversations that feel superficial just to maintain social connections? Have you ever felt you needed to dim your perception, soften your vision, to fit more comfortably into the human world? If any of this touches a truth inside you, I'd like you to share your experience in the comments below. You could write, "I see too deeply and it makes me feel." Your comment might be exactly what someone else with sharp vision needs to read today to know they are not alone, that there is nothing wrong with them for noticing what others don't or won't. Sometimes the greatest gift we can offer one another is simply the acknowledgement that our seemingly unique experience is shared by fellow travelers on the path. And believe me, as I read each comment, I am truly hearing you. The second danger of deep vision is closely tied to the first. When you begin to see the deeper layers of reality, when you perceive the hidden dynamics operating beneath the surface of everyday life, you also begin to recognize the immense ocean of suffering humanity is immersed in. You see the suffering people hide even from themselves. You perceive the unhealed wounds shaping their behavior, the deep insecurities driving their endless pursuit of external satisfaction, the existential terror they keep at bay through constant busyness and distraction. And if your vision is accompanied by an open heart, this hurts. It hurts in a way that those with more superficial perception rarely experience. It's a bittersweet pain because it comes with compassion, with a deep understanding of our shared human condition. But still, it is pain. And it can be overwhelming if you haven't developed the inner capacity to hold it without being consumed by it. I knew a woman, a very talented therapist, who developed an extraordinary ability to see the deepest wounds in her clients. She could perceive the trauma patterns shaping their lives, the limiting beliefs formed in early childhood, the adaptations they made to survive difficult or abusive environments. This vision made her extremely effective, but it also demanded a tremendous personal cost because she couldn't simply turn off that perception when she left her office. She saw the same dynamics everywhere, in casual social interactions, in television shows, in seemingly innocent conversations between parents and children in grocery stores. Once seen clearly, human suffering becomes impossible not to see, and she discovered she needed long periods of solitude just to process everything she perceived, to regain her balance, to avoid being pulled into a state of excessive empathy that left her completely drained. This is an aspect of the danger that's rarely discussed. Deep vision, if not balanced with practices that nourish and protect your inner being, can literally drain your life force. It's no surprise that many mystics and seers throughout history sought some form of isolation, not necessarily because they wanted to escape the world, but because they needed space to integrate their expanded vision, to find ways to carry the weight of what they saw without being crushed by it. The image of the hermit on the mountain isn't just a romantic stereotype. It represents a practical necessity for those whose perception has crossed certain conventional boundaries. The third danger of deep vision is perhaps the most subtle and the most dangerous: the development of judgment and spiritual superiority. When you begin to see what others don't, when you recognize the unconscious patterns controlling people's behavior, it's very easy to start feeling more evolved, more aware, somehow superior to those who remain, by your perception, asleep. This is an insidious danger because it disguises itself as spiritual discernment. You're not wrong in noticing that your awareness has expanded in areas where others remain contracted. The mistake lies in turning that observation into a value judgment, in assuming that your expansion in one direction makes you globally better or more advanced. It's like a climber who, having reached a certain height on a mountain, looks down with disdain at those still at the base. He forgets that his broader view is simply a function of his current position, not inherent merit. He forgets that those below him might have climbed summits in other ranges he hasn't even begun to explore. Spiritual vision is similar. It gives you a perspective others don't share, but that perspective is not the totality of truth. It's just one angle, one facet of the infinite crystal of reality. And those who seem unconscious of the truths you value might have deep realizations in domains you don't even know exist. I've encountered this repeatedly on my own path. Seemingly ordinary people who never read a spiritual book, never meditated, never talked about consciousness or awakening, yet embody certain qualities of presence, generosity, or practical wisdom that make my spiritual insights seem pale in comparison. The elderly woman who cares for her husband with dementia with infinite patience and unconditional love. The simple man who lives in perfect harmony with his natural surroundings without any articulated philosophy of ecology. The child who remains naturally absorbed in the present moment without any mindfulness practice. These encounters serve as powerful corrections against confusing spiritual vision with spiritual realization, or seeing the path with actually walking it. Which brings us to the fourth danger: the temptation to use deep vision to avoid the inner work that's necessary. Because seeing the path is not the same as walking it. Recognizing your ego-driven patterns is not the same as transforming them. Understanding intellectually the nature of human conditioning is not the same as liberating yourself from it. And here lies the subtle trap that many seekers fall into, confusing insight with transformation. They accumulate increasingly subtle and sophisticated understandings about the mind, the ego, and reality, but use those very understandings to avoid the often painful and challenging work of actually changing the deeply rooted patterns that govern their lives. I know this trap well because I fell into it repeatedly. For years, I could articulate profound insights into the workings of the ego. I could see with crystal clarity how my own patterns of attachment, fear, and self-purification were creating suffering, and yet I continued to repeat the same patterns. Because seeing is not enough. Vision must be accompanied by the willingness to act on what is seen, to endure the discomfort of change, to face the fears that arise when old structures begin to dissolve. Deep vision without the corresponding courage for transformation, becomes just another form of spiritual self-deception, more subtle and therefore more dangerous than the crude forms of illusion. Of course, there are many other dangers along the path of expanded vision. The danger of disorienting spiritual experiences the nervous system isn't prepared to integrate. The danger of opening psychic capacities without the discernment to use them wisely. The danger of awakening powerful internal energies without the adequately purified channels to contain them. But perhaps the most fundamental danger, the one at the root of all others, is fragmentation. The split between what you see and how you live, between your expanded perception and your embodied humanity, between your moments of transcendent clarity and the mundane details of your daily life. This is ultimately the true work of spiritual integration, not escaping the world of form into some abstract realm of pure consciousness, but the ability to remain fully embodied in your humanity while holding the expanded perspective of your essential nature. It's the ability to participate fully in the dance of life with all its joys and sorrows, pleasures and pains, beauty and horror, without losing touch with the timeless dimension of being that witnesses it all. It's the ability, as the Zen masters say, to carry water and chop wood with the same presence before and after awakening. So how do we navigate these dangers? How do we cultivate deep vision without falling into its potential traps? There are no simple formulas, but there are certain guidelines that can help. The first is cultivating balance between compassion and detachment. Compassion keeps us connected to our shared humanity, while detachment prevents us from being overwhelmed by the suffering we perceive. This balance is not a static formula but a dynamic dance, requiring constant attention and adjustment. The second guideline is remembering that true spiritual vision always includes humility, not the false humility that denies your own insights, but genuine humility arising from the understanding of how vast the territory of consciousness truly is, and how much remains beyond your current capacity to perceive. The deeper you see, the more clearly you recognize the limits of your vision in comparison to the infinite dimensions of reality. This humility becomes a natural antidote to the tendency to judge those whose vision seems more limited. The third guideline is practicing wise discernment regarding when and how to share your perception. This isn't about hiding the truth or compromising your integrity, but about recognizing that not every insight needs to be expressed in every context. There are times to speak and times to remain silent. There are situations where your vision will be received and others where it would only create unnecessary division. Learning to feel the difference is part of the art of living with expanded perception. And finally, perhaps the most important guideline, keep your spiritual path firmly anchored in embodied life. Don't be seduced by the illusion that true spirituality lies in some transcendent state separate from daily existence. True spiritual integration happens when your expanded vision informs and transforms the way you wash dishes, talk to strangers, face conflict, experience your own body, and relate to the natural world. It's when the light of consciousness illuminates every corner of your human experience, leaving no area untouched by deeper understanding. This integration doesn't happen overnight. It is the work of a lifetime, a gradual unfolding of deeper understanding and fuller embodiment. And along the way, you'll discover that the very dangers of deep vision, when met consciously, become catalysts for a different kind of vision, a vision not only of abstract spiritual insights, but of the beauty and dignity of human existence in all its imperfection. A vision that doesn't separate you from others in a spiritual ivory tower, but reveals your fundamental connection to all life. A vision that ultimately shows there are no others from whom you can be separate, only infinitely varied expressions of the same consciousness that you are at your deepest essence. If you follow this path long enough, you'll realize that the real danger isn't in seeing too deeply, but in not seeing deeply enough. Partial vision is more dangerous than complete vision. It's when we stop halfway, when we settle for insights that seem profound compared to conventional understanding, but are still trapped in subtle structures of separation, that we risk losing ourselves. Genuine, deep vision always leads back to unity. It always heals the fundamental illusion of separateness that lies at the root of all suffering. Let me end with a final story. A Zen master was sitting by a river when a seeker approached him. The seeker had studied with many teachers and accumulated extensive esoteric knowledge. He began sharing his insights with the master, speaking eloquently about subtle realms of consciousness, levels of enlightenment, complex ego structures, and how he had seen through all of them. The master listened patiently and then pointed to the river. "Do you see how the water flows?" he asked. "It doesn't worry about where it's going. It simply follows its nature, moving around stones, nourishing plants, reflecting the sky. It doesn't need theories about what water is. It just is water, completely." The seeker fell silent, feeling for the first time the emptiness of all his sophisticated understandings compared to the master's simple presence, who, like the river, simply was who he was, without effort, without pretense, without separation. This is the final invitation offered to us through the dangers and challenges of deep vision. Not to get stuck in special states or rarefied insights, but to allow our vision to bring us to the most simple and obvious place of all, the place that has always been right here, the place of being completely who we are, with nothing added and nothing taken away. Not a special state of consciousness, not a collection of profound insights, but the simple reality of our presence, here and now, in all its ordinary extraordinariness. This is the true fruit of deep vision, once all dangers have been navigated and all traps avoided. The rediscovery of the fundamental simplicity that has been present all along, waiting patiently for our eyes to open enough to see it. If these words touched something deep within you, if you recognized your own journey in the reflections I shared, then you already know you are not alone on this path of seeing beyond appearances and navigating the dangers such vision brings. This channel exists for people like you, people who are not satisfied with superficial explanations or conventional understandings, who feel called to see more deeply even while knowing the risks involved. Every week, I explore different facets of the spiritual journey, offering insights that may help illuminate your path, avoid common pitfalls, and integrate your deepest realizations into your daily life. Subscribe now to join a community of seekers committed not just to expanding consciousness, but to true transformation, where vision meets courage, where understanding becomes embodied, where wisdom manifests as love in action. It is no accident that you found these reflections today. There is a mutual recognition that happens when minds seeking truth meet even through words on a screen. Allow yourself to receive the support and guidance that can help transform the dangers of deep vision into catalysts for an even more complete awakening. Tap the subscribe button, activate notifications, and let's continue this exploration together week after week, unraveling the mysteries not only of consciousness, but of the art of living fully from that expanded awareness. The true treasure you seek awaits your discovery.